Hello, miladies of inestimable value. Those who survive monsters do not return as saints, they return as architects of shadows. Here's the truth that makes people uncomfortable. Psychologists have found that prolonged exposure to a narcissist can actually rewire your brain, forcing it to adapt to deception, gaslighting, and emotional warfare. For most people, that sounds like a nightmare. But for the Sigma female, that's where the story flips upside down. When she absorbs the darkness of a narcissist, she doesn't crumble into a victim. She mutates into something sharper, colder, and almost untouchable. It's like she went through emotional boot camp designed by the devil himself, and instead of breaking, she graduated with honors. The Sigma female who survives doesn't just move on. She becomes someone you can't categorize, someone who makes manipulators sweat, and someone who now treats lies the way a cat treats a laser pointer, amusing, predictable, and not worth chasing. So buckle up, because what you're about to discover isn't a tale of healing candles and inspirational quotes. It's the transformation of a woman who danced with darkness and came back with its rhythm in her blood. And trust me, once you see who she becomes after surviving the narcissist's labyrinth, you'll never underestimate her again. Number 1. She replaces naive hope with calculated realism. She no longer wastes her energy hoping people will change. That part of her died in the fire of the narcissist's chaos. Before, she might have believed in potential, given endless second chances, or held on to the idea that, with enough love, patience, or understanding, they'll eventually become better. That mindset was her weakness, but after surviving the narcissist's games, she doesn't live in that kind of fantasy anymore. She has replaced naive hope with something far more powerful, calculated realism. This doesn't mean she's cold or cynical. It means she finally accepts what most people spend their whole lives avoiding. People show you who they are very early on, and 99% of the time, that's exactly who they'll stay. A narcissist taught her that lesson brutally. He didn't just lie once, he lied consistently. He didn't just slip up, he thrived in manipulation. And yet she stayed, waiting for some miraculous transformation that never came. The pain of that realization is what makes her incapable of self-delusion anymore. Now, when she meets someone, she studies patterns instead of promises. Words don't seduce her, behaviors do. If someone repeatedly shows selfishness, arrogance, or carelessness, she doesn't tell herself, maybe they'll outgrow it. No, she takes the data for what it is and acts accordingly. That doesn't mean she hates them or even confronts them. It means she categorizes them correctly and limits her investment. It's brutal, but it's liberating. This shift gives her a level of freedom most people don't have. She isn't dragged into endless cycles of disappointment because she no longer bets on illusions. She doesn't sign emotional contracts with people who haven't proven their worth. She doesn't waste time romanticizing someone's potential when the reality already tells her enough. That clarity is her weapon. And the irony is, it makes her harder to exploit. Narcissists and manipulators thrive on dangling the carrot of change in front of their victims. But the Sigma female isn't hypnotized by that anymore. She knows exactly who someone is and treats them as such. Not cruelly, not bitterly, but with sharp-eyed acceptance. That's her evolution. She no longer hopes people will transform. She calculates how much space they deserve in her life based on who they really are. Number 2, she learns to manipulate without corruption. The narcissist unknowingly gave her a gift, the blueprint of manipulation. She watched every trick, every tactic, every sly twist of words used to control and dominate. But here's the difference. She didn't absorb it to become like them. She absorbed it to understand, to outplay, and to ensure no one ever drags her into that cage again. What once disoriented her now equips her. She learned how lies are built, how guilt is planted, and how power is stolen in silence. And now she can wield that knowledge with precision, not corruption. This makes her dangerous in a way that's hard to see at first. She doesn't go around pulling strings for the sake of ego or domination. She isn't interested in creating chaos the way narcissists do. Her manipulation is a scalpel, not a sledgehammer. She uses it in moments where it truly matters, when someone tries to play her, when a situation demands subtle control, or when protecting herself or someone she cares about requires pulling a string instead of making a scene. The beauty of this evolution is balance. She knows she has the power to manipulate, but she also knows the cost of it, having lived under someone who abused it relentlessly. That means she doesn't throw it around recklessly. She doesn't need to. She can walk into any dynamic and see the power plays before they unfold. She can influence without shouting, guide outcomes without appearing forceful, and pull back before things ever cross the line into cruelty. And this terrifies people who underestimate her. They expect her to be naive, soft, and endlessly forgiving. Instead, they find someone who can play the game better than the narcissist, but refuses to let the game define her. That's where her strength truly lies. She can manipulate, but she chooses not to unless there's no other way. It's not about control, it's about survival with elegance. What she becomes after surviving isn't a mirror of the narcissist, but their undoing. She learned their playbook inside out, tore out the toxic pages, and rewrote the rules in her own hand. Now, manipulation isn't a chain around her, it's a tool in her pocket, used rarely, but with devastating accuracy when required. Number 3. Her presence becomes a mirror that distorts the fake. After surviving a narcissist, her presence becomes something almost unbearable for those who are fake or performative. She doesn't react to surface-level charm, hollow compliments, or carefully crafted personas. Instead, she engages with the core of a person, their intentions, their energy, their authenticity. This creates an almost electric tension around her, because anyone who's used to hiding behind a mask suddenly feels it unraveling in real time. She doesn't need to call anyone out or play detective. The narcissist unknowingly trained her to read people like open books, to detect inconsistencies in tone, timing, and energy that most would overlook. So when she interacts with someone who is disingenuous, their facade doesn't hold. They either instinctively lower it, hoping she won't notice the cracks, or they instinctively retreat, unable to bear the discomfort of exposure. There's no in-between. This mirror effect is subtle but ruthless. It doesn't involve judgment, anger, or confrontation. It simply exists. Her calm, observant energy highlights what's real and what isn't. Inauthentic people may try to navigate around it, to charm her or distract her, but she doesn't fall for these diversions. She has no patience for theatrics. Her presence alone exposes pretenses, and in doing so, she forces people to confront the truth of themselves, whether they like it or not. What makes this even more extraordinary is that she doesn't need to consciously wield it. It's an unconscious consequence of surviving and adapting. She's no longer a passive participant in social dynamics. She's a force that reshapes them merely by being there. For people who are genuine, her presence is magnetic, grounding, and rare. For those who are fake, it's disorienting, almost threatening. She doesn't judge. She simply reflects what already exists, and that reflection is uncomfortable enough to make the insincere either evolve or vanish. In the aftermath of surviving the narcissist, this ability becomes one of her greatest tools. It's not aggression or malice, it's awareness turned into armor. The mirror she holds up to the world doesn't distort reality for others. It simply refuses to accommodate illusions. And that refusal makes her untouchable, respected, and profoundly intimidating without her ever trying. Number 4. She masters the predator's vision without becoming prey. After surviving a narcissist, her perception sharpens in ways that are almost uncanny. She doesn't merely recognize manipulation when it happens anymore, she anticipates it. Every lie, every attempt at control, every veiled agenda is readable to her, not because she studies people obsessively, but because she's trained her instincts on the hardest teacher imaginable, someone whose deception was constant, relentless, and deeply personal. This ability isn't about paranoia or suspicion, it's about clarity. She can spot the subtle shifts in tone, the hesitation in a smile, the almost imperceptible pauses in conversation that signal someone is trying to bend the narrative. What once would have trapped her emotionally now passes by like a distant shadow, visible but powerless. She's no longer prey to manipulation. She navigates social dynamics like a predator who understands every movement in the room before it happens. Her insight doesn't make her cold, it makes her strategic. She doesn't pounce unnecessarily, but she doesn't get caught off guard either. When someone tries to twist the situation, she's already 10 steps ahead, redirecting the outcome without even breaking a sweat. This mastery gives her an almost surgical control over interactions. She can disengage from toxicity, protect her boundaries, and influence outcomes in ways that feel invisible to those who think they're in control. What makes this extraordinary is that it's instinctive. She doesn't need to overthink. Her experiences have rewired her perception. Where most people rely on gut feelings or trust that can be exploited, she relies on a vision honed by survival. Every encounter becomes a landscape she reads with precision, anticipating hazards, spotting opportunities, and maintaining complete autonomy. She's proof that surviving darkness doesn't just build resilience, it cultivates a form of perception that's almost supernatural. The Sigma female who masters the predator's vision walks through life untouchable, seeing through masks, schemes, and intentions before they even take shape, ensuring that she remains in control, not just of herself, but of the narrative around her. Number 5. She doesn't forgive, she archives. After surviving a narcissist, she stops playing the endless, exhausting game of forgiveness. She no longer convinces herself that saying "I forgive you" will erase the damage, soften the betrayal, or change the person who hurt her. That energy feels wasted because she knows now that most people don't change, they only repeat patterns. Instead, she archives. Every slight, every manipulation, every moment of deceit is stored in her mental library, catalogued with precision. But this isn't bitterness or obsession. It's methodical. Each betrayal becomes data, information she can analyze to recognize patterns, anticipate future behaviors, and protect herself in ways that weren't possible before. Where others might fume or stew in resentment, she calmly notes the details, like a strategist keeping records of every move an opponent has ever made. She turns pain into intelligence, and intelligence into power. This archiving also rewires how she navigates relationships. People can't surprise her with duplicity because she remembers. She doesn't need to confront every past offense, nor does she need to dwell on it emotionally. She simply remembers the pattern, recognizes the red flags, and sets boundaries that prevent history from repeating. Her memory becomes a shield, and her discernment a weapon that doesn't harm others but protects herself with surgical precision. And here's the twist. This approach doesn't make her vengeful. It makes her unstoppable. She isn't trapped in cycles of anger or forgiveness that drain the soul. Instead, she moves forward with clarity, letting experiences inform decisions rather than emotions dictate them. Betrayals are no longer wounds that fester, they're lessons archived for life. By refusing to forgive in the traditional sense, she transforms betrayal into mastery. She's no longer vulnerable to the same manipulations that once controlled her. She's evolved into someone who knows the landscape of human behavior intimately, who understands when to engage and when to withdraw, and who carries the power of memory as both armor and guide. In her world, forgetting is weakness, and forgiveness is optional, but wisdom is absolute. Number 6. She absorbs the narcissist's darkness as a new language. After surviving a narcissist, she develops an almost instinctive fluency in reading darkness. What used to blind people, the subtle manipulations, the hidden jabs, the carefully hidden intentions, becomes a language she understands effortlessly. Every pause, every change in tone, every micro-smirk or fleeting hesitation is like a word in a sentence she can decode instantly. While others stumble, overreact, or second-guess themselves, she navigates it with precision, understanding not just the what, but the why behind every move. This isn't learned from books or advice, it's absorbed through survival. Years of exposure to constant deceit, emotional games, and psychological warfare sharpened her senses to a point where toxicity speaks to her directly. She recognizes the patterns, the cadence of manipulation, and the invisible cues that reveal true intentions. She doesn't need to analyze. The meaning registers immediately, a natural instinct forged in fire. What makes this extraordinary is how effortless it looks from the outside. She doesn't overreact or expose herself unnecessarily. She simply reads the environment, notes the threats, and positions herself advantageously. In a room full of deceit, she is the only one who understands the underlying currents while remaining unshaken. It gives her power not through aggression but through comprehension. She doesn't have to fight every battle. She knows which ones to engage in, which to sidestep, and which to dismantle subtly, almost invisibly. This fluency also shapes her interactions. People who try to manipulate, gaslight, or play games find themselves unnerved around her. They might succeed with others, but she decodes their intentions before they even realize they've revealed them. She becomes a mirror to their darkness, reflecting it back with clarity they cannot escape, and in doing so she establishes control without confrontation. By absorbing the narcissist's darkness, she doesn't become like them. She transforms it into insight, a language that grants her unmatched perception. Toxicity no longer surprises her. It speaks, and she listens, interprets, and acts with surgical precision, making her untouchable in ways most will never understand. Number 7. She learns the narcissist's trick of detachment, but refines it. After enduring a narcissist's relentless manipulation, she learns a skill the narcissist never truly masters: genuine detachment. The narcissist's version is chaotic and self-serving. It's shallow, reactive, and often laced with anger or manipulation. Her version, however, is deliberate, refined, and almost surgical. She can step away from people, situations, or conflicts without leaving emotional debris behind. She doesn't need to lash out, explain herself, or wallow in bitterness. She simply disengages with precision, cutting ties cleanly, like severing a wire, leaving no sparks to burn her later. This detachment isn't numbness. It's awareness. She recognizes which connections drain her, which people are repeating destructive patterns, and which situations hold no value for her growth or peace. Once identified, she withdraws, not out of spite, but out of strategic preservation. She no longer fights to maintain relationships that are fundamentally toxic or invest energy in illusions of loyalty or change. Her focus is on clarity, not closure, on survival, not validation. The power of her detachment is subtle but profound. It disarms manipulators because she doesn't react predictably to provocation. The emotional levers that once controlled her no longer exist. She can observe without getting entangled, respond without compromising herself, and remove herself from harm without drama. In doing so, she preserves her energy and her autonomy, and often leaves others stunned by her calm, unshakable presence. What makes it extraordinary is that detachment, in her hands, becomes a tool of mastery. She can engage fully when it serves her purpose, but she can also disappear from the emotional chaos before it swallows her. Unlike the narcissist, who detaches to exploit, avoid, or manipulate, she detaches to protect, to maintain sovereignty over her mind and her life. By refining the narcissist's trick of detachment, she gains what they never could: freedom from emotional entanglement combined with absolute control over her own reactions. She becomes untouchable, not because she lacks feeling, but because she chooses precisely where her feelings go, and in the end, that is a power the narcissist could only dream of. Number 8. Her charm becomes calculated, not accidental. After surviving the manipulations of a narcissist, her presence and charm undergo a transformation that's subtle but extraordinarily powerful. Before, her charisma might have been natural, effortless, and even accidental, a product of personality rather than intention. People were drawn to her warmth, her humor, her energy, and she didn't fully understand the effect she had. But after being tested by someone who constantly tried to manipulate, exploit, or diminish her, she learns to harness her charm with precision, turning it into a deliberate tool rather than leaving it to chance. Her charm becomes calculated in the sense that she now knows exactly when to use it, to what degree, and for what purpose. It's not about flattering someone or performing for attention. It's about achieving outcomes, gaining information, or establishing subtle dominance in a room without aggression. She understands that charm is more than personality. It's influence. And unlike the narcissist, who often uses charm recklessly or manipulatively to inflate ego, she applies it with surgical accuracy. Every word, every smile, every tilt of her head carries intent, whether it's to disarm, to negotiate, or to observe. What makes this transformation extraordinary is that she also learns when not to use charm at all. After surviving manipulation, she knows that sometimes invisibility is more powerful than visibility. She can withdraw from attention, becoming almost untouchable, forcing others to underestimate her or misread her intentions. The combination of calculated charm and strategic invisibility makes her unpredictable. People can't manipulate her with flattery, intimidation, or subtle power plays because she controls the emotional climate entirely. She decides when to engage, when to withdraw, and when to assert her presence in ways that serve her, not others. This is not coldness or performative behavior, it's mastery. She doesn't rely on charm as a crutch, she uses it as a lever. She can turn it on to command attention, navigate social dynamics, or even subtly reveal truths that others would rather hide. And she can turn it off completely, retreating into a space where she observes silently while others stumble over their own assumptions. In essence, surviving the narcissist turns her natural charisma into a weapon and a shield simultaneously. She becomes someone whose presence is magnetic, but never predictable. Charm is no longer accidental. It's a conscious, deliberate, and extraordinarily effective form of power, wielded with awareness, control, and precision. Her influence is quiet, undeniable, and impossible to ignore, yet impossible to manipulate. Number 9. She becomes uncomfortable with ordinary relationships. After surviving a narcissist, she develops a perception that ordinary relationships can no longer satisfy her. What once seemed normal, casual friendships, surface-level conversations, or predictable social dynamics, now feels shallow, almost absurd. She has been trained by fire to read beyond appearances, to detect patterns, agendas, and hidden motives that most people either ignore or never notice. Because of this, the ordinary starts to feel meaningless. Small talk, empty pleasantries, and performative niceties strike her as tedious, almost comical, because she instinctively measures interactions by depth, intention, and authenticity. Her standards for engagement rise dramatically. She no longer invests emotional energy in relationships that don't offer substance, trust, or real connection. She notices the tiniest inconsistencies in behavior, the subtle signs of manipulation, and the half-truths people casually slip into their interactions. Ordinary relationships, which many take for granted, now feel risky or unsatisfying because she sees how much of them is performative or conditional. This discomfort doesn't make her judgmental, it makes her selective. She avoids superficiality not out of arrogance, but out of survival instinct. She has experienced firsthand how shallow connections can mask danger, and she refuses to expose herself unnecessarily to environments that drain or deceive. Social interactions are now measured, intentional, and filtered through a lens of truth she cannot ignore. Paradoxically, this doesn't isolate her, it elevates her. People who meet her find themselves either fascinated or intimidated because she refuses to play along with facades. Her presence challenges others to be authentic, to be clear about their intentions, and to speak without pretense. For those who can't, her discomfort with ordinary relationships is palpable. They feel the weight of her awareness and often retreat. Ultimately, surviving the narcissist transforms her social perception into a refined radar. She no longer wastes time or energy on the mundane or shallow, and she navigates relationships with the precision of someone who knows the cost of misplaced trust. Ordinary now feels foreign, and extraordinary becomes her baseline. She doesn't seek chaos or drama, she seeks depth, and in doing so, she becomes impossible to satisfy with anything less than authenticity. Number 10. She doesn't fear darkness, she redefines it. After surviving a narcissist, she no longer reacts to darkness the way most people do. Where others might panic, withdraw, or moralize about evil, she sees it for what it truly is: information. Darkness, the lies, the manipulations, the hidden intentions, is no longer something to fear or avoid. Instead, it becomes data she can read, analyze, and use to navigate the world with precision. Every subtle betrayal, every unspoken agenda, every moment when someone's mask slips reveals patterns she can understand and anticipate. She has witnessed firsthand how deception works, how people exploit weakness, and how facades crumble under pressure. That exposure, which would destroy many, has sharpened her instincts and recalibrated her perception of human behavior. Darkness doesn't intimidate her, it communicates to her. It shows her limits, motives, and vulnerabilities, both in herself and in others. She understands that every toxic behavior carries a signal, and she learns to decode it instantly. This transformation changes how she interacts with the world. She doesn't shy away from uncomfortable truths or hidden agendas. She doesn't waste energy judging or hoping people will be better than they are. Instead, she absorbs the patterns, stores the lessons, and moves forward strategically. Darkness becomes a map rather than a threat, a guide that tells her where danger lies and where power exists. The result is a Sigma female who operates in a realm most cannot even enter. People assume she is fearless, but it's more than that. She's methodical. She knows that fear is wasted on predictable patterns she already understands. She can navigate manipulation, deceit, and hidden hostility without flinching because she sees the mechanics behind it. Darkness is no longer chaotic. It is legible, manageable, and ultimately useful. By redefining darkness, she transforms a source of trauma into a tool for mastery. She doesn't need light to survive. She thrives in the shadows because she knows their language. And in that mastery, she becomes untouchable, not because she's invulnerable, but because she has learned to see the world exactly as it is, unmasked and unafraid. Darkness no longer rules her, she rules it. Number 11. She turns pain into pattern recognition. After enduring the relentless manipulation of a narcissist, she no longer experiences pain as a simple wound. It becomes a lens through which she understands the world. Every betrayal, every gaslighting episode, every subtle jab becomes a piece of data she can analyze. Instead of leaving her confused, broken, or bitter, those experiences teach her to recognize patterns that most people overlook entirely. What once caused emotional turbulence now sharpens her perception, giving her a hyper-accurate radar for human behavior. She notices things that slip under the radar for others: micro-expressions, pauses in speech, slight shifts in tone, or the timing of certain actions. These small details, which would seem inconsequential to the average person, reveal intentions, power dynamics, and hidden motives. Where others see chaos, she sees the underlying structure. She can detect manipulation, subtle dominance attempts, or deceptive strategies long before they become a problem. Her pain has become a teacher that no one else can replicate. This pattern recognition changes how she navigates relationships and interactions. She doesn't react impulsively or emotionally to subtle provocations. She anticipates them. She can read rooms and people with surgical precision, understanding the motives behind actions without needing confirmation. The emotional scars she carries are no longer liabilities. They are instruments of insight, mapping human behavior in ways that most never notice until it's too late. The incredible thing is how seamless it becomes. She doesn't need to overthink. Her mind has been trained to process these subtle cues instinctively. Situations that would confuse or overwhelm most people become clear almost immediately. This skill protects her, gives her an advantage, and allows her to operate in environments where deception and manipulation are the norms. Her pain, once a source of vulnerability, transforms into a form of mastery. She turns suffering into foresight, trauma into intuition, and experience into strategic advantage. The Sigma female who survives a narcissist doesn't just learn lessons. She rewrites the rules of perception, becoming a force capable of seeing through the hidden structures of power and influence that govern human interactions, long before anyone else even notices them. Number 12. She becomes a collector of secrets without asking. After surviving a narcissist, she develops an almost magnetic ability to attract secrets without ever asking for them. People reveal themselves around her in ways they don't intend, drawn out by the combination of her calm presence, sharp perception, and the quiet authority she carries. She doesn't interrogate or pry, there's no need. Her silence, her stillness, and the subtle energy she radiates create a space where people feel compelled to expose themselves. Their guilt, insecurity, or desire to impress slips through, and she merely observes, storing every detail. This skill is born from survival. Years of watching the narcissist manipulate, lie, and control taught her to read the unspoken, to notice the cracks in what people say versus what they feel. She's trained herself to pick up on micro-signals, fleeting glances, hesitant phrasing, or body language that betrays hidden truths, and over time it becomes second nature. People confess to her not because she pressures them, but because she emanates an energy that disarms pretense. What makes this extraordinary is the way she uses it. She doesn't exploit these secrets recklessly, nor does she weaponize them for ego. Instead, she archives them, turning human behavior into a living map of intentions, weaknesses, and motives. Each confession she absorbs enhances her understanding of the people around her, helping her navigate relationships, social dynamics, and potential threats with unmatched precision. Her presence alone changes interactions. People who are used to hiding their flaws manipulating narratives, or guarding their privacy find themselves inadvertently revealing more than they intended. The secrets they carry float into the space she occupies, and she quietly takes note, transforming silence into insight. In the aftermath of surviving darkness, this ability becomes one of her greatest tools. She becomes a repository of human truth, capable of understanding the motives and drives of others at an almost instinctual level. The Sigma female doesn't need to ask, interrogate, or control. People willingly supply her with the information she needs, and she uses it with discernment, subtlety, and the quiet power of someone who has learned to see the world without illusions. After surviving the narcissist's darkness, the Sigma female is no longer the same person who walked into that storm. She emerges transformed, not broken, sharpened, precise, and unshakable. Every betrayal she endured, every manipulation she survived, every moment of pain became a tool, a lesson, and a lens through which she now reads the world. She doesn't stumble blindly through relationships, social dynamics, or emotional encounters anymore. She sees clearly, reacts deliberately, and moves with the quiet authority of someone who has mastered the shadows without being consumed by them. Her power isn't loud or performative. It's subtle, terrifying in its precision, and impossible to ignore. She commands respect, not through intimidation, but through awareness. She navigates life like a strategist, understanding the hidden currents that others miss, predicting motives, and responding in ways that leave manipulators, pretenders, and deceitful players exposed. Pain no longer weakens her, it informs her. Darkness no longer scares her, it teaches her. And influence no longer controls her, it bends to her understanding. What makes her extraordinary is not just what she has survived, but what she has become because of it. A master of perception, a collector of truths, a strategist of human behavior, and a force that cannot be underestimated. She has absorbed the worst the world could throw at her and turned it into clarity, power, and resilience. Ordinary connections, shallow interactions, and deception hold no sway over her anymore. She moves through life untouchable, decisive, and impossibly self-aware, a living example of what happens when survival meets intelligence, instinct, and unapologetic self-mastery. In the end, the Sigma female who emerges after absorbing the narcissist's darkness isn't merely a survivor. She is a phenomenon. She is the one who sees through masks, predicts moves before they happen, commands rooms with quiet energy, and transforms every shadow into insight. She is proof that surviving manipulation and trauma doesn't just make you stronger, it makes you extraordinary, untouchable, and finally free on your own terms. If this deep dive into the extraordinary transformation of the Sigma female resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that subscribe button to stay connected with more insights that cut through the noise. Like the video if you feel the power of survival and mastery. Comment your thoughts or experiences. Let's create a space where real understanding thrives, and share it with anyone who needs to see how resilience and self-mastery truly look. Your support fuels this channel and helps more people uncover the raw truths about strength, strategy, and transformation.